Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Jay. Thank you to everyone at Austin Forum for putting on this event and for having me. Um, and I like to agree wholeheartedly with Jay's opening remarks. You know, this is a crazy time in our country and in our world. And I thought about just canceling the event. I thought about saying, you know what, this isn't a time to talk about video games. But I talked to some friends, I talked to my family, and video games has helped me get through some hard times. It's helped a lot of people I know through hard times. I strongly believe that video games can be a force for good. And so I just want to share that with y'all today. And if that inspires us to do more through games or with games to connect and be more awesome and kind to each other, that's amazing. And if games help us just get through this crazy time, I think that's also great. With that said, let's dive in. So as Jay said, I'm Patrick, and I consider myself kind of equal parts entrepreneur and game developer. When I'm not starting a new company, I'm making video games. When I'm not making video games, I'm starting a new company or helping a friend start a new company. And the name of tonight's talk is Video Games, the Future of Entertainment, Sports, and Socializing. And in preparing for this, it really occurred to me that it's so much more about the future of these things. Games are an important part of our culture. Games themselves, before video games, before computers, they're prehistoric. There's literally fossilized knuckle bones found that people rolled as dice. Games have been with us for as long as we've had society, for as long as we've had domesticated animals. And so I'm going to retitle this on the fly. Sorry, Jay. So we're going to talk a little bit about the past, present, and future of entertainment, sports, and socializing. Now, not everything. I can't cover all of these topics. If you know me, I can be a bit of a wheezy windbag. So if someone needs to give me the time alarm, just shoot me a text. I'll move it right along. But I consider myself an amateur historian of video games. I grew up in a household of history nerds and nerds in general. And so as a family, we always discussed, not only what was going on now, but why and where did these ideas come from and what came before. So I'm going to reflect on some of my old favorite games as much as I talk about new ones. So bear with me. So this here is really where my gaming journey began. This is the IBM PC Junior. It was IBM's answer to the Apple II. The Apple II, of course, being one of the first personal computers, one of the first color computers, and IBM had a competitor. So it meant that I wasn't as cool as the Apple II kids. It did give me a slight head start on DOS as Microsoft and IBM compatibles continued to take over the world. And since then, I've had a nice, good career in video games. I've made a lot of games and a lot of software that I'm very proud of. I've worked with a lot of amazing people and amazing teams. These are some of my most favorite things that I've made, and just by way of further introducing myself, some of these games are Stubbs the Zombie, which is a ridiculous action-adventure game where instead of being the humans trying to survive the zombies, you play as the lovable Stubbs, who's a zombie and gets through the world by eating brains. I worked on John Woo Presents Stranglehold, which was a lifelong dream come true to work on something based on the film director John Woo, who made classic films like Hard Boiled and The Killer, starred Chow Yun-fat, his leading man. It was a great game we made at Midway Chicago with an amazing and huge team of folks. After that, I kind of had my fill of guns, and I worked on a game for Disney. We made a game called Guilty Party. And Guilty Party is really my love letter to games and to board games. So it's if you imagine taking Mario Party and Clue and Guess Who and Carmen Sandiego, you took all those games and you smashed them all together into a big, ridiculous, globe-trotting story. And that game was for the Wii, so it's full of ridiculous mini games where you use the Wii remote to do things. And after that, at Wideload, we worked on a series of games from Marvel, including the Avengers Initiative. This is right around the time that the first Avengers film came out, so we got to spend our days looking at beefcakes like this Captain America here. And to continue with the patriotic theme, one of our recent projects at Farbridge, where I work now, is Masterworks Journey Through History, and that's a virtual reality tour where you can visit historic sites around the world, including Mount Rushmore. So big spectrum of things. I've worked on a lot of stuff that I'm proud of, a lot of stuff that I like. But tonight, I'm coming to you as much as a fan of video games as I am a creator and an expert. So I'm really putting on my gamer hat more than anything else tonight. My career, I've worked at a bunch of places. I've started, partially because I've started a lot of companies. So these are some of the companies that I helped start. Yeah, all of those here in Austin. I started my career in the 90s doing internet stuff and moved up through console games, mobile games, software tools, and now run Farbridge with my business partners. And I also worked at larger companies like Frog Design, Midway, Disney, and Unity, the game engine company. So last plug about Farbridge. We make games and game-like software, and by that I mean there's lots of things that this technology can do besides entertainment, like historical recreations, health applications, things like that. And so we basically split our time between fun and silly gaming games like Jar Wars, or working with Rooster Teeth on Ruby Grim Eclipse, and working on things like My Virtual Armenia for the Smithsonian. So enough about me. Let's talk about video games. Besides the PC Junior, the other game I have to talk about is Super Mario Brothers. I remember distinctly when I first saw Super Mario Brothers. I think I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade. And it looked unlike any other video game to me. And it just grabbed me. And it made me want to play that game. It made me want to be in that world. It made me want to explore it. And I didn't really realize until later on why that was. And I have 2 big ideas. The first is that unlike a lot of games I'd seen before this, like Pac-Man or Space Invaders or Donkey Kong, Super Mario Brothers had a bright blue sky. It was like this happy place. It looked like a cartoon world with blue sky and happy clouds and the horizon and hills and little plants. And it looked like a cartoon. It looked like, to me, you know, a Looney Tune. And I was like, wow, I can control a cartoon. I can be in a cartoon. How amazing is that? And the other amazing thing about Super Mario Brothers is that there was more to it. If you think about Donkey Kong or Space Invaders or Pac-Man, the whole game takes place on that one TV, that one CRT at a time. You don't really go anywhere else. When you beat a level, the whole level goes away, and then the whole level comes back. But Super Mario Brothers had that amazing smooth scrolling. So as you played the game, you ran through the world, left to right, always discovering something new. And so that sense of discovery, that sense of immersion. I mean, it's silly to talk about immersion from the 80s, but it really was immersive at that time for me. And it really grabbed me, and it put me on this course, this mission to learn as much as I could about video games, learn how to make video games, get involved in this industry. And so one of the statistics that people love to throw around about the video game industry today, the modern industry, is, oh, it's the biggest industry on the planet. It's bigger than movies, blah, blah, blah. And it is a big industry. It's a very large industry. And the statistic that I do believe is that video game industry is larger than film's box office. Now, the movie industry has lots of different revenue streams, box office just being one of them. But I want to use Pokemon Detective Pikachu as an example. It was a great film. I really liked it. Tons of fan service for us Pokemon fans. My kids dug it. And Pokemon, the film, made $430 million at the box office. That's great. $430 million. I would love to have $430 million. That's a big deal. But when you compare that movie's box office opening to the entire franchise of Pokemon, the card games, the video games, the merchandise, the bed sheets, the pajamas, the Pokemon franchise has made $95 billion with a B. So that movie was less than 1/200th, if I've done my math right, less than 1/200th of this franchise was the film. And I think that's amazing. And I use Pokemon as an example here because it is now the top grossing franchise. It's theorized to be #1. It's made the most money of any video game, anything. And it's really inspiring because it has gone everywhere. And I'll talk more about that. But I don't think video games are limited to any one device or any one platform. And yeah, that's really cool to see. And today, I think the thing I'm most interested in talking about, especially in light of current events, is how video games can bring people together, how we can have community in the midst of video games. And for the most of my childhood, pre-internet or pre-World Wide Web at least, video game community was the playground. We would get a copy of the latest GamePro magazine. We'd learn, memorize, and trade notes about the latest moves that were discovered in Street Fighter or in Mortal Kombat. And we'd gather at the 7-Eleven and the Stop and Go with our quarters to play these video games. And that was the community. But in the mid-90s, with the popularization of the internet and it really coming to power, we started having online games, and lots of online games, and big, successful online games. So you may recognize this screenshot here. This is a screenshot of Ultima Online, which is credited as being the first or one of the very first massively multiplayer online role-playing games. And that's a mouthful, so the industry has shortened that to MMORPG. That's still a mouthful, so we further shortened it to MMO, massively multiplayer online. And Ultima Online was a big deal. It was very innovative. It was very popular. It was created here in Austin, Texas. And at the height of its popularity, it had 250,000 people paying a monthly subscription fee to play this game. And so in this picture, every little person, I don't know how well this came through on the screen share, but every little splotch of blue or yellow or purple, that's a different person. That's a different human being playing this game together. And this was a big deal. That was a ridiculous notion that I could be in a video game playing my character and someone else on the other side of the world, a friend or a stranger, could be controlling their character. And it really set a fire in the industry. And MMOs have been a big deal. They've been a big deal to Austin's game industry and Austin's community. And probably the game that most people know in this genre. Oh, before I go on, here's a picture of our good pal, Richard Garriott. Ultima Online and the Ultima franchise was so successful, it literally paid for him to go to space. So shout out to Richard for escaping the planet, at least for a little bit. But the big MMO, the one that a lot of us know and probably many, many of us have played, is World of Warcraft. Now, World of Warcraft wouldn't have happened without Ultima Online. It wouldn't have happened without EverQuest before it. But World of Warcraft was the game that made online gaming, massively multiplayer online gaming, accessible, easy, friendly, and even charming and at times funny. And World of Warcraft, massive, huge, successful hit. And they had, at one point, 10 million monthly subscribers. So Ultima Online, at least according to my research, peaked at around 250,000. World of Warcraft, 10 million people paying to play this game every month. And just a huge technological feat for them to be able to engineer that, especially before you had phrases like cloud computing and virtual machines being super commonplace. This was a massive, massive accomplishment, creatively, technically, and business-wise. And this game was so popular, they've just relaunched it as World of Warcraft Classic, which lets you play the old original version of the game or close to it to be nostalgic, or just to play an old favorite game again, new for the first time. Now, that 10 million monthly users number is going to get dwarfed. And I'm going to talk about some of my favorite games here. The first is Minecraft. Minecraft is a game that I've sort of fallen in and out of love with a couple times. The game began sort of as an indie darling and rapidly became pretty mainstream. Microsoft purchased it, I think, for around $2 billion and has just continued to grow. But lately, Minecraft has been important to me because this is the game I can play with my family. I can play it with my kids. We can try to rope in my wife to play with us. We've had our friends in New York play. We've invited our friends from other states and cities to play with us. And we've been able to play in this world of our own creation that we can design, make, and control. And in this world, that's been really powerful, right? We're all stuck at home. We're dealing with a pandemic. We're dealing with horrible political news. And to have a place where we are truly safe, where we are truly in control, where we are powerful, and where we can just be creative and have fun and laugh with ourselves. The last couple of months, we've had some really great moments here in Minecraft. Now, I don't want this to be just a sales pitch for Minecraft. I'm a fan, but there's more games like this than just Minecraft. And before I move on, I like to say that Minecraft is in the 100 million club, because Minecraft is one of the games that claims to have over 100 million people play the game every month. And that is a staggering number. That's massive. It's difficult to comprehend how many people that really is. And in that same club is a very similar game called Roblox. Like Minecraft, Roblox lets players create their own worlds, create their own characters and experiences. And they had a bit of a head start with letting people do their own programming. So program to create new games within Roblox. So while the game Roblox is free, there's lots of other little games and little things inside of Roblox you can buy, download, and play. My kids also like Roblox a whole lot. Some days I don't get it. I see what they're playing and I'm like, I don't know what this is. This looks like a level I would have made in the Quake engine in 10 minutes. And for them, it's the most fun thing ever. So, still very popular, available on lots and lots of platforms. And also in the 100 million club is Fortnite. And you've probably heard of Fortnite because it has just been a huge, huge phenomenon. And I think the beta started 2017. So it's not even quite 3 years old. Specifically the Battle Royale mode, which is the big popular mode. And since then, it's become a huge phenomenon, a gathering place, a social hangout. I kind of theorize that a lot of players who maybe grew up on Minecraft or Roblox, they see what their big brother is playing, and they're like, hey, this Fortnite thing, that looks like a nice little step up. And, it's got more action and definitely has some of its more violent game modes. But it also has a creative mode where you can build your own world, tell your own stories, do your own make-believe with your friends. And I mean, when my kids are trapped inside all day, that's super important that they have a place to go do that. And I really marvel. I am just kind of stunned that there are multiple games now that can claim 100 million concurrent players. And don't get me wrong, there's probably lots of overlap, right? Like just in this list, my kids play both Minecraft and Roblox. So, it's not necessarily 100 million distinct, unique users in each of these audiences. But it's still a massive, massive number of worldwide players. And it tells you how many people are on the internet, how many people have these digital devices and smartphones, and how many of these people are truly connected and within reach. And those are just 3 games. I don't have the statistics for all of these games, and it would be impossible for me to name everyone's favorite game. But some of the online and multiplayer games that I've continued to enjoy playing are League of Legends from Riot Games. My son and I play Smash Bros. He whoops me at Smash Bros. Pretty bad. It's embarrassing. But hey, that's our father-son bonding time. I got so addicted to Brawl Stars, which is a kind of like League of Legends but on your phone. I had to uninstall it because it's really that fun and that compelling. And lately, my personal gaming time has been in Hearthstone, which is like a digital card game. It's inspired and based on some of the lore from Warcraft. And my college roommate, who I used to hang out and play video games with every day, he reeled me back into Hearthstone. And so lately, we've been playing Hearthstone against each other. We've been Zooming each other and just giving each other tips on how to play and how to build decks. And really just enjoying this chill hanging out experience, almost as if it's just, 2 guys having a beer at a table playing cards. And, anytime you have multiple people doing an activity, competition is going to come out of it, right? Like that's one of the things I think is just fundamental to video games is the challenge, right? The game is asking me to do something. The game is testing me. The game is, seeing if I have the skills. And when you get a bunch of people together, they're immediately going to start competing. You have a bunch of kids in a park with a ball, they're going to invent a game. How high can I throw this ball? How far can I throw this ball? How many times can we throw this ball back and forth and catch it? And the same is absolutely true in video games. And so someone came up with a very creative name for these, this flavor of games to be esports. So like email, but esports, or esportes, if you're feeling festive. And esports is another one of those worldwide phenomenons. And for a while, I looked at esports as a surprise. It was stunning to me that people would tune in and watch each other play video games. And I think that's because I'm too close to it, right? I know how to make video games. I can make video games. I sometimes make video games for fun. And so for me to spend time with a video game and not be playing it or making it, that made no sense. But when I started thinking about it as from a slightly different perspective, is like, well, if I get to watch the person who's absolutely best in the world at something, right? The player who's best at playing a game, like watching Michael Jordan or Steph Curry or LeBron James play basketball, that's going to probably be a more fun experience than me playing basketball. And I like basketball a lot, but I'm not good at it. And so that started to kind of click a little bit. I was like, yeah, okay. Maybe it is more fun to watch the performer, the performance, the master, the professional, the person who's really so good at this. And then all of a sudden, it started making sense. It started clicking for me that there could be a whole other side of our industry that has nothing to do with the creating of the video games. It just has to do with, like in this picture, people in a stadium watching other people, the best players in the world, play a video game. I think this might be an ESL event. These are some friends of ours in Germany who organize very large, tournaments of video games. And according to my notes, this last event of theirs had, I want to say, over $1 million, or their annual prize pool is over $1 million to win playing games. And, there's the joke about, your mom said you're never going to make any money playing video games. I'm not recommending this as a career path. I don't think that this is a surefire hit. I think you should still go to high school, go to college, get your degree. But the fact that people can compete and play and win money playing video games is super fascinating to me. And for me, it broadens our audience. It makes our industry more accessible. Anyone can pick up a controller and start playing and be a part of this community and be a part of this business. And it really started clicking for me as I got more and more into fighting games again. Like I said, I loved playing Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat in the arcade and at 7-Eleven. And when I started getting more into fighting games again as an adult, those are some dramatic matches to watch. Suddenly watching those video games were almost as dramatic as watching a boxing match or UFC fight. This is a picture from EVO, which is an annual fighting game conference. And I still haven't been to EVO. I've been saying I'm going to go for years. I really want to go. It looks like a tremendous event. It's exciting. There's drama. And not only that, it's a really diverse crowd. The fighting game scene is very racially diverse, very friendly, very accepting. And I think that's awesome. And we need more communities in the game industry that have that as part of their identity and their ethos. And I got to mention this kid, Booga. Last year, Fortnite had their first championship. It's a giant tournament, esports tournament. They're on top of the world. The game's so successful. They're printing money. So they have their first championship. And this is the winner. His code name or screen name is Booga. And he won $3 million to come in first place in Fortnite. And he's all of 16 years old. And I can't even imagine how much $3 million changes a 16-year-old's life. Hopefully, he's putting it to good use. But this is a big deal, and everyone in our industry should take notice. And I also think it's very fascinating in light of this pandemic and our work from home culture. You know, people are turning to all sorts of competition and sports. I've been reading about F1 racers who are training in video games to continue, you know, keep their skills up in F1 racing because the video games are so realistic. And I think it's going to continue to grow. And I think it's going to continue to be a big, important part of our business. And then the industry gets even stranger to me, right? Like, okay, competition. I understand that. The game designer in me understands the drive to win, the drive to succeed, the drive for conquest. That makes sense. And then there's another new phenomenon in the last, let's say, 10, 15 years in games, which is people watching other people play video games. Not to compete, but just for fun, as a pastime. And so it started with videos on YouTube, and people call them let's play videos of people saying, hey, I'm going to play this video game. I'm going to record a video of me playing it. Maybe I'll have commentary over it. Maybe not. Maybe I'll react and hoot and holler. Or maybe I'll just make a movie of this entire game and upload it to YouTube. And at first my reaction was like, well, why would I want to do that? Again, I want to play the game. But then I remember what it was like to be a teenager and to have no money. And I couldn't buy every video game I wanted. That's a pretty recent phenomenon in my career that I can afford to buy video games, you know. And so it makes sense that if I can't buy every single video game I want, I can watch the ones that I'm interested in. I can see how other people like them. I can truly try before I buy. And the people who have created these videos, who call them streamers or content creators, they've created their own personalities and their own brands. And so I don't follow enough streamers to know, but a good friend recommended some streamers that he thought were good personalities, creating good content. They all have screen names that look like, you know, BBS or Usenet handles. But Andy Munition, OMG is Firefox, Co-Carnage, and Courage. These are people whose their careers, their jobs now are playing video games online, making videos about them, and also streaming those videos live online and reacting to y'all as you watch in real time. So I don't have the chat open right now. I'm not seeing the commentary thread, but these streamers, they do it all. They play the video game, they interact with their community, they manage the group of people there, they have their own Discord servers. It's pretty amazing. And I have a real newfound appreciation for what they do now that I'm on video all the time, right? I'm here doing this presentation to you on Zoom, but this is gonna last an hour, and it will be 1 hour of probably the 6 to 8 hours I spend on Zoom today, talking to coworkers, talking to partners, pitching business ideas. And it's hard work, it's exhausting. You can probably hear I'm a little hoarse because I've been talking all day. And yeah, these content creators, they really do a lot of jobs at once. I have a lot of respect for that. And lately, now that I don't have my coworkers around, if I'm not in a Zoom, if I'm up late working on a deadline, lately I've been turning on Twitch and just watching people play some of my favorite games. And it's nice. You know, this is a weird, lonely time. And to say that I can be less lonely by watching people play video games, that's amazing. That's an amazing phenomenon. And yeah, I'm grateful for it. And of course, I have to mention Ninja. You know, Ninja is one of the most famous streamers. And in part, he became even more famous because he played Battle Royale with Drake. So Drake, the rapper, hip hop artist, got on a phone call with Ninja, played Fortnite, and they played the game together, and Ninja streamed it. And he had millions and millions of people watching him play the game and listening to him chat with Drake on the phone. And it was a super interesting phenomenon and just a crossover moment of these audiences of Twitch, Fortnite, video games, hip hop, music, all of these industries kind of converging into this moment, the singular moment of the people saying, hey, we can do these things together. This is super interesting to me. I'm curious about it. I think that we're going to look back and this is going to be one of those moments in our industry where like, yeah, this is when this really went mainstream. And I think it helped Ninja get a big giant deal with Mixer to switch from streaming on Twitch's video platform to Mixer. You know, there's now multiple competing platforms vying for viewers, just like there's multiple television channels and streaming movie networks. There's multiple competing streaming video game networks. And then also in the news, right on the tail of that, was concerts in video games. And this is a picture of Marshmello, the electronic artist, and he had a whole concert. They had a whole concert in Fortnite, and it's a virtual dance party. And this has continued to happen both in Fortnite and in other games, where it's a special level of the game. And instead of running around shooting each other, we're going to just run and jump around and dance and emote and goof off with our friends to a live music concert. And I don't know the next time I'm personally going to feel comfortable going to a music venue. And so if this ends up being how my friends and I experience live music or experimental music, or even an experiential music, where we go to a place and we see a synchronized lights, sound, video, imagery, and music, I think that's pretty compelling. And I think this type of thing is going to really push us out of thinking about these things like, oh, that's a video game. Fortnite's a video game. Minecraft is a video game. You know, I think more and more we'll be thinking about them as virtual worlds, virtual places. And, you know, that's not a new term. People have been calling them virtual worlds for a long time. But I think this type of mainstream mass media events, true celebrities, bringing attention to these places is what's going to push them over from being like, oh, that's just a video game thing, or that's just a kid's thing, to being a venue, a worldwide venue for artistic expression, which is amazing. And I want to talk another minute about this gaming everywhere phenomenon, because I really do believe that gaming is for everyone, right? Everyone who called into this video call probably has an interest in video games and probably plays some video games. And I hope when people watch the recording that everyone watching it also has an interest in video games. It might be a small game. You might just have Marvel Puzzle Quest on your phone that you play from time to time, or Candy Crush. Or, you know, you might love playing Warzone. But I really believe that games are a universal medium, that they can work anywhere on any type of device. And because of that, it's super important that we do work to make sure that anyone in the world can play and enjoy our games. And so I think this is the last plug for Minecraft. But the thing I've appreciated especially about Minecraft the last couple of months is that it works on everything we have, right? All of our computers, our phone, our Switch, we can play Minecraft on it, and we can play it with each other. And that has been, I mean, it's not necessarily easy. There's some hoops to jump through. You got to link some accounts. It's not perfect. But again, that is a big technical feat. I promise you, a lot of engineering, a lot of computer programming went into that to make it work. And it's really cool, because it just continues to break down barriers. You know, in my world, every household has a computer, maybe 2, maybe 3. And the adults all have smartphones, and maybe the kids have some hand-me-downs. But that's not true all over the world. We were talking to some of our friends at ESL, and they told us that the fastest growing regions for esports is the Pacific region, and like in Indonesia, and the Philippines. And a big reason for that is that they play on their phones, right? And so there's a growing esports audience to play games like PUBG or Fortnite, and even Clash of Clans, you know, or in Clash Royale, you know, traditional mobile games, competitively on phones. And so they told us about an amazing distribution deal. I forget which country it was in, but the internet connections are so bad there, they did a deal where PUBG came pre-installed on people's phones. And so when people bought a smartphone, it was kind of like they were going out and buying a PUBG device. They bring it home. They have just enough bandwidth to play the game online, but not enough to download the whole game. And that's a big part of their socializing. That's a big part of their interaction time. And, you know, that's where companies like ESL are investing for esports in the future, is on mobile devices as well. So no, oh, pardon me. I need a sip of water. So another game I'm grateful for is Monopoly. Now, I think Monopoly is fascinating for historical reasons. It was actually invented to teach people why renting properties is less cost efficient than purchasing them. It was originally called the landlord game. It was all about how, hey, being a landlord is good because you get more money and can buy more property. But it's become very universal, right? Almost as universal as chess or checkers, but it's multiplayer. And so the version of Monopoly that works on our phone, we can connect with our aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters. And so it's been great to get get a group phone call going, fire up a random Monopoly, and just goof off and have fun. I don't think there's going to be a Monopoly esport tournament anytime soon. But I really appreciate the work that went into making these games work on phones and across different types of phones, because I would not be interested in playing a single player Monopoly. That sounds like the most boring game I can imagine. But playing Monopoly against my brother, when I draw a chance card and I get to get one over on him, that actually sounds fun and compelling because of that social interaction, because of that community, and because my brother and I get to stay in touch that way. And in general, I love board games. And to bring this all the way back around, lately I've been doing as much of my socializing in games through board games as compared to video games. And when I say lately, I mean, I guess the last 10 years since I moved home to Austin. That was, going out and playing board games with friends in person was a big part of my social time. That was my little break. I got to be away from a computer, which just reminds me of work and of stress and of, the video games I'm trying to make. And going out and playing video games was, just a fun, chill, relaxing time. And so one of the coolest things that I found in the midst of working from home and quarantine is these online platforms that facilitate and make it easy to play board games. Now, again, it's not as great or as chill and easy as sitting down at a bar, having a cider, catching up with a friend, slapping each other on the back, and playing a board game. But it comes pretty close. And so a couple that I've really liked lately is Board Game Arena, which some of us will play later. And Board Game Arena is cool because it just runs in a web browser, right? If you have a device that can connect on the web, it should be able to play games there. There's not a whole lot to install or figure out. And it's great for, simple 2D games, card games, board games. And they automate a lot of the rules. So you don't have to memorize all of the rules. Board Game Arena does that for you. And then sort of like Board Game Arena's big brother is a game called Tabletop Simulator. And it's really more like an app than a game. But you can get it on Steam. It runs on computers. And Tabletop Simulator is like the 3D version of a board game. I kind of describe it as being it's like World of Warcraft, but for board games. Because, you use your mouse and keyboard to navigate around and move your camera. And the controls are a little complicated. But once you learn them, the rewards are amazing because you can play almost any board game there. All the classic open source games like chess, checkers, of course. But it's also really designed to facilitate you playing your own game. So if you want to host a game of Dungeons and Dragons with you and your friends, you can get them together in Tabletop Simulator, have voice chat, have little statues of each of the characters, move them around a map of a dungeon, and with varying degrees of the rules automated. So if you want to make up your own rules as you play, you can, or if you want to play something that's more tightly scripted like a video game, they also have some of those in Tabletop Simulator. It's been a fascinating corner of the gaming world to explore. It had sort of been on my friend's radar and as something to hey, we should go look into that. We should try it out. But as soon as we got stuck at home, we're like, okay, let's fire up Tabletop Simulator. Let's figure this thing out because, my weekly routine usually has, 4 to 6 hours of board games a week. So we got to figure out how to get our fix there. One last plug for Tabletop Simulator. I'm pretty sure it's made here in Austin, Texas. I haven't met the developers. I don't know them. So I'm just a fan. But I think some of them are here in town. And so I want to say kudos, Tabletop Simulator. Way to go. All right, so I love video games, clearly. I think games are important. I think video games are a great escape. They're a great stress relief. But it really is about the people that you play with. It's about connecting with them, staying in touch with them, and helping all of each other get through this, because no one is having an easy time right now. We all have our on days, we have our off days. And so, I just want to talk about ways that we can stay connected and continue to help each other. So these are a few groups, most of them centered here in Austin, Texas, but now that we're all living online, I'd say anyone from anywhere in the world is invited to get involved with them. So this first group I want to tell you about is called ATX Game Makers. It's run by my good buddy Donald Harris, who's the very tall gentleman in the red shirt here. He goes by Tall Gamer online for obvious reasons. And he started ATX Game Makers just to get more people into the game industry, to facilitate a diverse community and diverse creators. Of course, everyone is welcome. And really, he's been focused on helping people develop their careers. And I know he's very proud that he's helped people connect and get interviews and get jobs in the industry. And a lot of their community is happening in Discord right now. But if you go to their website, atxgamemakers.com, all of the social media links are up there. I think Donald's probably somewhere in the audience here. So he's a great person to know in games in Austin and in general. Also, Donald helped me a whole lot with my presentation today. So shout out to Tall Gamer. Next up is a group that I help organize called VR Austin. I've been working a whole lot in virtual reality the last 5 or 6 years and help coordinate events with VR Austin. We haven't had an in-person event in a while, but we're still sharing news and resources with the community as we can. We're figuring out how to hold our annual game jam that we usually host in November. We're figuring out how to do that virtually. But if you want to connect with people who are interested in virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, any of the reality technologies, check us out at vraustin.org. Also, if you have ideas for the upcoming jam or how game jams can be done well during quarantine, I am all ears. I'm looking at all of this as experimental and us figuring out how to stay connected online. And this annual event that we've run for the last 5 years is the big part of my year, and it's a big part of the community service that we do at Farbridge. So it's important to me that we keep it up and keep doing it. Another great resource is the ATX Game Dev calendar. This is a tradition in Austin. It's been passed down from one curator to another. Right now, John Henderson runs it, and he's continued to post about online events that are related to the video game industry. I would say if you're new to the industry, if you're a student who wants to get more involved in game development, or if you're just curious about games in general, this is a great place to start. They have a Twitter page and a Facebook page, and you can just see what's going on. And there's always something. But pre-quarantine, there were usually 2 or 3 events a week that you could attend in person. There's probably at least one event virtually a week, either hosted in Austin or otherwise, that you can attend remotely. So check out ATX Game Dev Cal, add it to your bookmarks, add it to your regular rotation of events. So an in-person event that I don't know if it's going to happen this year, I hope it's safe, I hope it can happen, is the Classic Game Festival. This is hosted at Palmer Auditorium, and it's coordinated by the people from Game Over Video Games, which is a classic game shop here in town. This is a great event. I like taking the kids to it. We can play classic video games. I've been having a huge nostalgia wave being stuck at home lately. So, I'll probably go and look for a 4th mint pristine copy of Metal Gear for the NES, or, scrounge through a bucket of $1 Skylander figures to find one that we don't have yet. But there's also always great speakers. The Austin game development community is just rife with creators who have been doing this for a long time. And, the people that I grew up looking up to, many of them are here in Austin still. So they come out, they speak at Classic Game Festival. It's a great time, and I'm looking forward to the next event. And finally, South by Southwest. It was a huge disappointment to not have South by Southwest this year. The cancellation happened right as we all started working from home. Full disclosure, I've been working with South by Southwest, been helping plan and organize this year's video game festivities. We had a great year lined up. I'm sure we will have a great year lined up again. One of the things I love about South by Southwest is that there's an equal parts programming for creators and for fans, for game players. And so we're hoping to continue that tradition. We're figuring out more and more online events. We're figuring out what online South by Southwest gaming events are going to look like. And again, if you have ideas for things that you'd like to see South by Southwest do online, or if you want to help participate in a South by Southwest online gaming event, I am all ears. And I think I think South by Southwest has a very large and very loud megaphone, and that there's a lot of good we can do to bring people together, help them in their careers, help them stay focused on creativity, and not get too distracted otherwise. Those are my prepared remarks. I want to say, of course, thank you for having me. This is a new experience for me, giving a public speaking from home. Of course, I'm going to hang out, answer questions, hang out and play some games. If you want to learn more about any of the things I've mentioned or talked about in these slides, we'll be posting the slides online. And almost all of these community resources are linked on my website, very creatively named patrickcurry.com. You can find me on Twitter as well, and you can find our company Farbridge at farbridge.com, and we're on Twitter at farbridgeco. Yeah, I think with that, I will hand the mic back over to Jay and crew for Q&A.
All right, thank you very much, Patrick. Lots of great comments in the chat window. Looking forward to the Q&A now. Can you release the screen and I will take it over?
Yeah, sure thing.
Jay, I think you should leave the Mario head on whenever you're talking, because I just think that's a really good look.
Super Mario's, I'm a big fan of him.
Me too.
Let me go to the screen. Am I on do you see the Q&A slide now?
Yeah.
Great. So at this point, I want to introduce Aaron Maiorino, the AMD Ryzen Product Marketing Manager. Thank you for joining us tonight, Aaron. Aaron is going to lead the Q&A session until 7:25. And then Jessica and I will make a few final closing comments. But don't go away after that. We have games. Patrick has mentioned games multiple times that we actually have on our agenda for tonight. So we hope you'll stay. You do not have to be an experienced gamer. You can just watch and chat along if you want, or you can jump in and play. We are inclusive. We want everybody to have fun, and we've got some options so that everybody can. So Aaron, take it away.
Thanks. So Patrick, one thing you've talked about was, your first PC that you had, what got you into gaming. And I think many of us can relate to the fact that we were gamers before it was cool, putting that in air quotes. So what was the game that you think kind of changed the perception of, being a closet gamer to be more accepted and more popular in the world?
Well, that's a great question. Well, I think it comes in waves. I think it's generational. So my older cousin, I remember visiting her, and she had a Pac-Man board game. And so I was too young for Pac-Man fever, but when Pac-Man came out, Pac-Man was it. And Pac-Man was everywhere, and everyone was into Pac-Man. And then it sort of died down. And then I think the next big giant wave was Super Mario Brothers, and everyone knew Super Mario Brothers. My wife and her sisters played Super Mario Brothers. Everybody was all about it. And then I think it, again, it sort of died down, and I think every generation has their seminal pop culture moment in gaming. So for me, those games would be things like Super Mario Brothers or Sonic the Hedgehog, a couple like that. I think early in my career and, just as a younger person, violence in games was taboo. And it was, like strange. And unexpected, and the notion that there could be an R-rated game was kind of gross. And clearly that's not the case anymore. The market of games have expanded to content for all age ranges. And so there can be content that's like, hey, this is clearly for kids. Adults aren't going to want to play this. And whereas there's other content that's like, hey, this is clearly for teenagers or older. This is not for kids. And I think games like Fortnite have probably done the most to make action games truly mainstream. And I think they did it by being tasteful. They're not gratuitously violent. There's still too much violence in Fortnite for me to let my kids who are, preteen or younger play the game. But I think that they've done a good job of writing that line and making a game that's truly accessible to younger teens and up. I hope that answers your question.
So I'm going to combine kind of two questions here. So are you aware of any companies in Austin that are kind of using those MMO capabilities to support collaboration? And with, current issues that we're having with COVID and whatnot, what do you kind of see the future of work in video games and how we kind of collaborate online?
Yes, this is a big topic of conversation for us at work. Yes, I know some people who are working on it. We're working on those types of things. We're trying to figure out how can we work better and more efficiently remotely? How can we collaborate? How can we stay in touch? So we're looking at ways to take things we've built in virtual reality and in multiplayer games and turn them into workplaces. With that said, there's a lot of people who are doing that for different specific markets. So I forget their name, but there's a group that's doing it specifically for architecture. There's a group that's doing it specifically for remote doctor's visits. And so if anybody wants to follow up with me and reach out, I'm happy to point them in the direction towards people who are doing this for whatever industry you happen to be curious about.
So this is, as a lot of people here are designers and making games, they want to craft those really compelling experiences. And when you're designing a game, you also have a lot of that responsibility creating these games when it comes to being addictive games and whatnot. So how do you create games that are compelling yet responsible of people with their time?
Wow, that is a great question. I think as a creator, and this is true in any medium, you have to know what you stand for. You have to know what your moral boundaries are, what you're comfortable with or not. And I think the easiest way to put it is don't make something that you're not proud to put your name on. And so if you think something is exploitive of kids, or, you remember in the early iPhone days, it was easy for a kid to rack up a $20,000 credit card bill buying dragon eggs, right? Because some video game didn't have any sort of controls on that at all. And ultimately that comes down to the creators of the game to be able to look at themselves in the mirror and sleep at night. And secondly, it falls on all of us to be engaged and aware of what our kids are watching and what our kids are playing. Little side tangent here. There was recently a story about how some streamers on Twitch are starting to spread conspiracy theories and just straight up disinformation about coronavirus. And that's terrifying. It's terrifying to think that your kids could be watching a stream, having a good old time, enjoying video games, and they're being fed, information about, oh, you don't need a face mask. It's totally safe to go out. Don't listen to what they say, fake news. And so I think it also is a responsibility of anyone who controls a platform, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Mixer, anyone who's hosting that content. In my book, you're on the hook for responsibility there. And if people are using your technology to spread lies and to hurt people, then we as a society should hold you responsible for that.
So kind of along the same avenue, and you touched on esports and, the huge prize pools that we have. Do you believe esports is a risky avenue for young people to pursue?
I think it would be risky to pursue in a vacuum. I know early on, one of my favorite games from the early 3D era is a game called Quake, and it was one of the first true internet games. And unlike Ultima Online, It was completely 3D. So, first person, you looked like you were in a world moving around, seeing other players. And some of the very first cash pools and tournaments for for online games were in Quake. And I remember some of the early championship winners went on to become great game designers. So one of them was named Thresh. That was his gamer name. And he was so good at the game that other game companies started seeking him out for opinions about, hey, how could we make our game good for competition? How could we make this game feel right? How could we make this game have the strategy and require the skills that you as a pro gamer know? And so I would say to anyone out there who's passionate enough about playing video games to pursue it as a professional player, I'd also think about learning about how the games are made and putting your mind to work for crossing over into design, or even being a coach. You look at some of the best NBA players, like a favorite of mine, Steve Kerr. He was a great NBA player. He's a fantastic coach. And he probably makes, I don't know, does he make more as a coach? But anyhow, he continues to make plenty of money as an NBA coach compared to being a player. And so I think esports is a fine gateway into the industry and into the career. I mean, I think it's great to welcome as many people into the industry as possible. But I've also seen articles about players burning out and they don't have the same reflexes they did when they were 25 as opposed to 21. And that's a trip. We don't want professional athletes burning out when they're 25. So it's a new market. It's a new industry. We're going to have to keep an eye on it, but say keep your options open and don't quit school.
So what do you think can be done to improve understanding, especially among young people, what it takes to actually make video games and what skills are necessary for them to get into the industry?
That's another great question. There's also a large number of people who stream on Twitch their process of making video games. So one of my good pals, Sam Palaman, he'll often jump on Twitch and be like, hey, I'm working on my game, and I'm just going to stream the process to you online. And I'll talk about how it goes a little bit and answer questions in chat. But I think that's a real way for people to see what it takes. It's like shadowing a professional for a day, going to their job and just looking over their shoulder and be like, hey, what's that? How does that work? And now we can do that via Twitch, which is like a worldwide screen share. That's pretty cool. That's pretty compelling. And I'm also interested in that because we have to figure out how to mentor and train new employees. And when we bring someone new into the studio, it's easy to say, hey, let's, sit with Damon for a while. He knows how this works. He knows how our code bases work, work on a couple features, but you start learning via osmosis. If we're going to be trapped at home for a while, we have to figure out other ways to do that. And I think screen share and streaming could be a big part of that.
So what are some opportunities for games or people to use video games to facilitate social and emotional learnings for kids and teens, especially those kids that are engaging in competitive gaming?
That is a really good question. I don't know that I know enough to say or have a great answer there. I will take a look online. I'll see if I can find some resources to link to in the post-event notes. I know there's a lot of research being done in the space. I think if you research or just Google search the phrase "games for good," there's a lot of people who are out there, academics, doing studies, doing tests, writing papers, writing books about how video games can be used for positive, healthy, productive outcomes. So that's where I would start.
So how do you estimate the impact of Apple Arcade has had on the casual gaming audience and bringing them to more mainstream gaming?
That's a good question. Y'all have great questions. Way to go. I think Apple Arcade is a really fascinating experiment. For those of you who aren't familiar, when the Apple iPhone came out and they first opened the App Store, people could make games. There were lots of games that you could buy for $1 or $2 and play. And you probably remember the original Angry Birds, Cut the Rope, Doodle Jump. And that was a market. You bought a small game for as much as a cup of coffee. But a couple of years in, the model really changed to being more free-to-play games, which are that's a misnomer. It's, you know, it's free to start playing the game, and then eventually they start hitting you up to buy things inside the game. But the industry calls them free to play to make it sound enticing. And so I think Apple Arcade is Apple's initiative to say, hey, you know what? We want to get those original type of games, those games that you could just download and play, and we're not going to hit you up for more money all the time. We want to recreate that experience on our devices. And instead of paying per game, you pay for a subscription, not unlike paying for Netflix or Spotify. I don't know that I know enough about the response to Apple Arcade to say how it's impacting things. I know that Apple, I suspect that Apple helped fund a lot of those games. And so I think that's a great idea. I personally really enjoy playing traditional games on my phone. Like I played all the way through Limbo. I played all the way through Inside, both on my phone. Really enjoyed it. And so if Apple can foster that type of game, I think that's great. If Apple does more marketing to promote and make people aware of games, that's also great. But I don't know how many people out there aren't aware that they can play games on their phone. I think if anything, Apple's just exposing more people to a broader range of games.
And I've been told that I get one more question to ask, so
Okay.
I'm going to hopefully make this a good one. Where do you see VR gaming going and VR components going in the future?
Wow, this is literally the $1 million question. I'm wildly passionate about virtual reality. I have had some of my most fun gaming experiences in virtual reality, and also some of my most fun development experiences making VR content. It feels like an all new experience to me, like an out of body experience when you can step away out of yourself and go somewhere else. And I think that phenomenon is unique and important and maybe special in the midst of working from home. In the short term, I don't see people going to arcades, and I don't personally want to put anything on my face that's touched anyone else's face in the coming months. And so, I think that's why we see Oculus Quest devices are sold out. That's one of the leading VR headsets right now. They're sold out or being sold for high amounts on Amazon. But it's also a very new industry still. And I think we still have a lot to learn about what works in VR. And I don't mean just what technically, we got it to compile, we got it to run, it's neat. But we haven't had those big breakout hits, except maybe Beat Saber, I would say has been the phenomena there that has changed things. And Beat Saber is a music dancing game where you use two lightsabers to hit on the beat like drums. So short term, I think VR is going to stay at home. I think, I know we're seeing a spike in interest about it. A lot of people are calling me and asking me about VR again after maybe 6 months of not being as interested. But I also know that compared to the 100 million club, VR has a long way to go. And depending on how you count the numbers and who you ask, there's 5, maybe 10 million VR headsets out there in use. And that's total. That's total audience. Whereas Minecraft, Fortnite, Roblox are claiming 100 million users every month. So as a business person, we're keeping that in mind. We continue to make software for everything. I'm inspired and fascinated by the notion that we can continue to do that and make software that runs anywhere. And in preparing for this event and talking to Jay about, hey, what games can we recommend? Like, we're going to get a big pool of people from all over the country and maybe some internationally, and we're going to say, hey, let's play some games together. What can we recommend that has a really high degree of working? And that's raised the bar for myself. I want to do better, and I don't want to have a bunch of disclaimers be like, hey, if you like Guilty Party, guess what? You can play it only if you have a Nintendo Wii. That's disappointing in this day and age. So I think making software that works everywhere right now is more important than making software that works for just one particular piece of hardware.